Welcome to Widowed Too Soon, where real-life widows and widowers come together to share their stories of survival, faith, and the journey of finding hope in the darkest of times. Whether you're newly widowed or have been on this journey for some time, each week we're here to provide you with inspiration, practical advice, and the reassurance that you are not alone. You were made to not only survive, but thrive. And now here's your host, a woman who has walked this path herself, who finds solace in writing, joy in speaking, and freedom in dancing like nobody's watching. Michelle Bader Ebersole.
Hey friends, before we get into the episode, I want to apologize for this episode and the one before being late. I was actually at a cabin in the woods with Wi-Fi that didn't work very well. And so I couldn't upload. This one was supposed to be last week. I couldn't upload it last week because of that. And then this week I was in Idaho. So it's coming to you another day late. So I wanted to apologize for that. In my 4 years, I have barely missed any episodes. And then I missed 2 in a row. But life happens. As you guys know, it's been a really, really busy time. I had my book launch on May 23rd, and then May 30th, I had my book launch party. Let me tell you, it was so beautiful. It was like an 82-degree day. It was outside. It looked like a wedding. It was absolutely amazing. And there were about 75 people who came. And what was the coolest, but also the saddest part is I asked everyone who was widowed to stand up. And I knew of about 20, 25 widows, but there was probably, I would say, 35 to 40 that stood up. Like at least half of the people there were widowed. And then I said, if you love someone widowed, stand up. And it was pretty much everybody standing up. And it was very touching. I had a cake and had the cover on it. The food was just beautiful, charcuterie. We had a mirror that says, I am chosen. And we had crowns that people were actually like putting on for pictures because I read the chapter Know That You Were Chosen, which I know you guys have heard me talk about a million times, how God chose us for this special assignment to be married to our spouses and to walk them all the way until they died. And so I read that and I asked people to apply it. You know, if they're not widowed, it could apply to other people that they love, that they were chosen to be in their life. So anyways, it's been a crazy 2 weeks. And from there, I went, the next day was my niece's wedding, which was actually from Luke's side of the family. And we went to her wedding and I had a ton of grief. It was the first like big family event since Luke died, like with aunts and uncles and cousins and all of this stuff. And I had Joel with me, which is kind of an interesting situation. I mean, everybody was great, but it's a little weird. Like I'm with Luke's whole family with Joel. And his great nephew, Luke's great nephew, actually looks just like him. He's 6 now, I think, 6. And when I saw him, I immediately started crying because it just looked like Luke. And then his dad also looks just like him. It's so hard. And I had grief. But here's the thing about grief over time. Yes, I still have it, but it passes quickly. And there was the feeling of grief like, wow, like if he was still alive, I'd be in the family pictures. And, you know, there's just like a lot of grief involved with it. And I was so happy for them. But it also made me miss Luke because I know he would want to be there in that special moment. So anyways, I did that. And then what was so cool, if you guys have read my book or heard my podcast, you know about Kim Lentz, one of my best widow friends. So listen to this story. So she decided to, so she wrote the foreword in my book, right? And she ended up planning with Joel, and I didn't know it, that she was going to come surprise me. Now she lives in Iowa. I live in Washington. So my other good friend, Carrie, was at my house. Me and her girls and Bentley were all taking a walk. And all of a sudden I see Kim and I like flip out. I so wish there was a video. So I'm like, I run to her. I think I dropped the leash. I don't even know. And I just were like, how are you here? How are you here? I just kept saying it over and over. How are you here? And her and her sister, Shelly, came and surprised me. And her niece, Maddie, came the next day, which I loved meeting her and her sister. And it was just a beautiful time. And so anyways, when I got back from the wedding pretty late, my friend Carrie's at my house. So I spent time with her. And then I went to Kim's Airbnb. I didn't get there till like 10 p.m. and stayed till like 12:30 or something. And then the next morning, I flew out to Sacramento for a writing retreat. And so it has been so nonstop, but I really loved the writing retreat. Every morning we had writing time. But instead of me working on a project, I just journaled because I've been missing journaling while I was writing my book. And I got clarity on what I'm doing next, which is a workbook that to go along with the book. So if you love the book, just wait. The workbook's coming out hopefully real soon. And it was just, I made all these friends. There was just 6 writers and then some retreat leaders and a best-selling author who was doing it and an agent. And it was just a beautiful time. And there was so much sun and we were in 30 acres of woods. Like it was like so deep in the woods that if you went very far, you were supposed to bring bear spray. like, but I had an amazing time there. And then from there, I don't recommend this. So I was there 5 nights. Then I flew straight to Boise, Idaho. Well, I stayed at the airport all day. That's a whole other story, which I did get some things done. But I was just so exhausted. I don't sleep well when I'm not at my house. And so from there, I went to Boise, which was great. My got to hang out with my best friend Deborah, and then the next morning, then I met Joel. Flew out to Garden Valley, so that's where they live. Long story. Anyways, the next morning, we flew to McCall, Idaho, and I spoke at a women's tea at my best friend's church. And it was an amazing event. There were about 30 women and I think about 8 widows. And I got really great feedback on how much it helped them. And so several of them bought the book. And one of them the next day at church told me she read half of it and how much it helped her and how much she loves it. And it was amazing, amazing weekend. And then we spent a couple more days in McCall and then in where's the other place? Garden Valley. And it was great, but it was 10 days of being gone. I just got home yesterday afternoon, went to a meeting, and I'm just a little exhausted. Thus, the podcasts are a little late too. But I am so excited about what readers are telling me. Not just people, when you start out, it's people they all tell you good stuff. Now it's reaching to like people like the know people, and I'm getting amazing things. I'm hearing from people literally all over the world how this book is helping them. If you're watching on Spotify, you can see it. This is the hardcover. It's beautiful. Widow Goals, Steps to Finding Peace When You Lose Your Spouse. And people are telling me it's really helping them, from brand new widows to widows that have been widowed a long time. And that means a lot to me. So if you have not, please get this for yourself or for someone you love who is widowed, because I honestly think it's going to help them. It's, of course, there's going to be a link in the show notes, but if you go to Amazon and you just type in Widow Goals, you'll find the book. It'll pop right up. And it's $7.99 on Kindle. And then there's like a paperback and a hardcover option. Oh, an audiobook. That's a newer thing. It took a while to get that going. So you can get it in all the formats. Anyways, I love this episode with Kelli that's coming up. She's been waiting very patiently for a long time, I think since April, to get this out to you. So without further ado, I present to you this episode with Kelli. Thanks so much. Welcome to Widow Too Soon. This is Michelle Bader Ebersole, and I'm so excited to introduce you to another guest in just a minute. But I had some announcements. So as you guys know, I'm releasing my book, Widow Goals, Steps to Finding Peace When You Lose Your Spouse, on May 23rd, 2025. So depending on when this comes out, it may be just a few weeks away. And as you guys know, that is the 5-year anniversary of Luke's death. And I just feel like it's a good way to honor him and to show how God made beauty out of ashes. And so make sure if you're interested in, there's 2 things, either being part of the launch team, like getting the word out there, or you just want information about when the book comes out, please make sure that you sign up in the show notes. So with that, let's get right to our show. I am sitting with my new friend, Kelli McQuesten. How are you today, Kelli?
I'm good. How are you?
I am very good. I'm so thankful that you reached out on TikTok. We were just reviewing how we met, and you saw the post where I was with some of my Widow Goals leaders, and we were dancing around. I think our first post we did was like Empowered Widows, Empower Widows. Yep. And we had that on our sweatshirt. And that's the one that then we got this awful widow. She said she was a widow who was like, you guys killed your husbands. You're too happy. Yeah, so we did a response to that, and we created this viral video that's still out there getting
Mhm.
lots of views. And one of the girls, shout out to Kim, she was like, I think we should hold up a picture of our husbands and say, this is my husband, this is when I'm widowed. And it became kind of like this viral, well, somewhat viral trend where all these widows, thousands of widows, started posting their story. I'm so and so, and I lost my husband. And I think what it did is it helped people feel not alone. Like,
Yeah.
wow, there's other people who are not just like, I think society sometimes thinks widows are like 70 years old, but it was a
Right.
way for them to see, like, no, we're not. But anyways, we met through TikTok. That's the point. And you have an awesome share story. I mean, all of our stories are hard, obviously, but you've got a great message that you're going to share today. So we're just going to dive right in. Could you start by telling us how you met your husband and like what your
Yeah.
life was like with him?
Sure. So, Matthew and I actually met online.
Okay.
This was before Tinder and Hinge and all
Wow.
of those. It was actually called Plenty of Fish, believe it or not,
Oh, I
which
have
is
not
so
heard of
funny.
that one. That's a
Yeah,
funny
it makes
name.
me feel really old.
Yeah.
But this was about 13 or so years ago. We met
Uh-huh.
online, and I added him on Facebook because I was young. I was a newly divorced, single mom of a baby, and
Mm-hmm.
he was a single dad, newly divorced, and I was kind of like creeped out by it at first. So we just stayed friends on Facebook, and we just kind of would chat here and there. And then I posted that I wanted to be taken on a good old fashioned date, and he said he was going
Aw.
to be the one to do that. And next thing you know, it's the second date and the third date, and we're meeting each other's kids, and moving in together, and got married. And
Mm.
he was in paramedic school. He was a paramedic and fireman. And
Okay.
we like grew up with each other. You're
Yeah.
in your young 20s and you're figuring
Yeah.
everything out, being parents, and it really just sealed it together for us when we got married and had Grayson, who just joined our family in this unbreakable bond together.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just working hard. We wanted to provide a good life for our boys, and we had goals, and we started to build our dream house together, which was one of the things we were really looking forward to
Mm.
doing. And that's unfortunately where my story starts, is
So,
a week after we moved in.
okay, well, let me just back it up. So he had a son, you had a son, and then you had one together. So
Yep.
3 kids.
Yeah,
And
a nice little blended family.
yes, and I know from blending a family, it can be challenging.
hmm
And did it take a little while for everyone to kind of get used to each other and that whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when we added Grayson, when we had Grayson, that's kind of when we became that unbreakable
Yeah,
bond,
right.
because it just fused everybody together and had this common connection. And the older two boys stepped up to be big brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really just, yeah, that's kind of when it all started to make sense. But it was hard in the
Yeah.
early years, and it still can be challenging at
Mm-hmm.
times. But um, yeah,
Mm.
it was a wonderful time though.
Yes. So then tell us about a week after you moved in, what you were going to
Yeah,
share.
so like I said, we started building our dream home together, and the night that our home that we were living in, we went into contract to sell it
Okay.
so we could move into this new home. Um, that night, my husband woke up and told me he was going across the street to the ER because he was having some chest pain. And I thought he was bending down to say bye for work because he,
Yeah.
left early. He was a fireman. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, okay, do I need to come with you? And he's like, no, I'll be fine. And as soon as he was out that door, I was on the phone with my mom and telling her, like, I need you to come over here for the kids so I can go be
Yeah.
with Matt. And he it's called AFib with RVR. His heart was just in an abnormal rhythm.
Oh.
And, they had to do where they would sedate him and kind of shock his heart back into rhythm. It's
Mm-hmm.
just what they do to try to fix it. And while they did that, they put a camera down his throat, and they saw that he had severe mitral valve regurgitation, which basically means like the flaps of his heart weren't touching
Okay.
at all. So the blood was all just kind of like pooling in his heart. And like we were shocked by this. We knew he had a heart murmur, and I can like in that moment, I was like, I vaguely remember him telling me, I'll need surgery someday. They found a heart murmur. And like a lot of men, he made it seem like no big deal, right? Like getting him to go to any doctor's appointments was never a thing. And then, here 7 years later, it's severe regurgitation and he needs surgery as soon as possible. So we were very shocked to hear that. And we left the hospital. His heart went back into the rhythm. We left the hospital with a referral to Cleveland Clinic and told that he would need surgery as soon as possible. Well, 2 mornings later, I woke up to him falling in the bathroom. It woke me up out of my sleep, and I'm going to be honest, I thought I was going to find him dead. That's how hard he fell. And so I called 911 and we went to the hospital, and we were told that he needed surgery like even quicker than what we were thinking. That was probably just a drug interaction, they're thinking, but that's kind of where my story starts to get interesting. And I hope I don't confuse anyone by doing this, but I'm going to step back for a moment. I mentioned we're a blended family.
Right.
So, I was married before.
Right.
And so Parker, my middle son, his dad actually had a heart transplant 4 years ago today. It was 4 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Or I guess I should say the month of April, 4 years ago. But, he had a connective tissue disorder called Loeys-Dietz syndrome. It's not really a connective tissue, or it's not really a condition that a lot of people would be familiar with.
No.
But basically it affected his heart, and he ultimately needed a heart transplant. And Parker was tested, and, he doesn't have the condition, but it was something that I learned a lot about because I was scared of my son getting it. And what's really interesting is while his dad was going through this process, my career is actually in organ donation. So my job every day is to educate the public about the benefits of being an organ, eye, and tissue donor and how it can save lives. So for his family, because, we weren't married any longer, but still friendly with each other, his family would reach out to me and ask questions about the organ donation process while he was in the hospital. And so, I was a great resource for them. Now, fast forward back to my story. I'm in the hospital with my husband, and they start doing these screenings for him. Like, they're like, do this with your hand and stick out your arms. And I look at the doctor and I say, you're screening him for a connective tissue disorder. And she goes, how do you know what that is? And I'm like, well, my ex-husband got a heart transplant. This would have been 3 years ago when I said it, 3 years ago. And she like froze in her tracks. And she turns and she looks at me and she goes, what's his name? And I told her, and she goes, I'm his doctor.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's
my
crazy.
ex-husband's doctor
is
taking care of my current husband. And I'm being told he potentially has a cousin disorder called Marfan's. So Marfan's is another connective tissue disorder. And so like my mind was blown. Like what? Like what are the chances of me having one husband with this rare condition? Now you're telling me my current husband of many years has this condition, and it was so baffling. But I was like, I know what to do. Like I've researched so much about this, like I can help, right? So we do everything we need to do. We plan the surgery. We're packing up the house to move to our new dream home that, like our final home that we worked so hard to get to together. And the surgery was scheduled for a week after we moved in. So we move in. It's our oldest son's 16th birthday the night before surgery. And we go to surgery, and that clock was ticking. They give you a time frame, and it was way longer than what it was supposed to be. And, I think people who have gone through this, they know that feeling when you get called into a private room. And that's when they told me that during surgery, and this was just a valve replacement. That's what was supposed to be happening. They told me his heart just completely stopped working. So my instant thought is he going to need a heart transplant? And that, I know that sounds kind of weird, but that's what my mind was already 5 steps ahead of me, because I'm thinking of what happened with my ex-husband. And they told me, he's young. He was only 37 years old. And they told me, we're going to give it a day or so and see what happens. And he's young, his heart should bounce back. That's what they kept telling me. But I was already planning, like, what do we need to do to get him on the list? Because
Right.
I had seen the good that donation
Right.
can do. It saves lives.
Yeah.
I mean, we saved, with organ donation in the United States, we saved 45,000 lives last year.
Wow.
So
It's amazing.
it happens, right? And I meet
Mhm.
these people and I volunteer at events with them. And so we started that process, and it was this delicate dance of his hospital team. You know, we would get one step ahead and then two steps back with Matt's care, because there is such a thing as being too sick to be on the list as well. And
Okay.
even though he was at the top of the list, the sickest person in the area, we had a couple struggles. He was 6'5", and
Wow.
your donor has to be within 6 inches of you for the
Okay.
organs to work. And then he was type O blood, and they can only receive type O blood or
Oh,
organs.
wow.
So that makes it a little bit more difficult. And unfortunately, after 14 days of waiting on the list, he had a surgery that he needed to kind of extend things along, and they think he suffered a stroke during the surgery, and he just stopped following all commands. So I had to make that difficult decision that I know a lot of people face, where you have to decide, you know, what your loved one would want and if there's any quality of life left. And yeah, he just unfortunately didn't get that heart in time.
Wow. Telling
Yeah.
you, and I know it's hard to talk about, but tears are healing, and your story is healing to so many people that can
Mm-hmm.
relate to what you're going through. What was it like making that decision? And
Right.
then I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, that's okay. That was really hard. Before I
Yeah.
worked in organ donation, I actually worked in a hospital
Okay.
on an ICU. So a lot of those patients would progress to brain death and become donors. That's
Okay.
what happened, and I watched that before I went to work at my organ procurement agency. So I had walked that walk with a lot of people before, and I knew what to look for. And as much as I had medical knowledge in my background, it still felt like I was doing it, like I was killing him, which is not. That's
Right.
not what it is. It was really hard, but I knew that he wouldn't want, if he didn't have a quality of life, he wouldn't want to be here. I knew that, even
Right.
though we were so young, we'd
Right.
never really had those discussions. But I knew, and I'm very grateful that the medical team listened to me, and they did some testing to help determine if he actually was brain dead. But he wasn't. He had just a tiny bit of reaction in his pupil still, but he was so close to brain death that those tests really helped me understand that he was no longer there. In organ donation, we teach that brain death is death, because
Right.
that's when someone's able to become an
Right.
organ donor. So I knew that Matthew was gone, and that there was no recovering from it. There was no coming back. And so, although it was, very hard, I knew it was the best thing to
Right.
just let
Wow.
him go.
And how did you talk to your kids about that?
Oh gosh, that is one of the days that haunts me. I I was told early in the morning that there was no hope left. And that was one of the things that I said to his doctor is I said, please tell me when there's no more hope. And he did that. And I didn't even go in to see Matthew that morning yet. Like, I hadn't even seen him yet for visiting hours. And I went home to my kids. My mom had to tell our oldest to come home from high school. And I told her, don't send the other ones in to school yet. And that's how she knew. And I'm very blessed to have amazing parents that are with me through everything in life. And I just remember sitting down on the couch with the kids and telling them. And it was so strange because, like, as a mother, all you want to do is protect your children, and to not be able to take away their pain is so difficult. And like looking back at it, I remember that I didn't cry when I told them, which is like so strange for me that I didn't, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like you almost have to become strong for them in that moment. And it's
Yes.
like they're
Yep.
crying and like my mom and dad were crying. And I remember thinking like, why am I not crying? And it was just like all I could do was hug them and tell them that I love them and that I was there for them. But yeah, that day haunts me because it's like I feel like their childhood was just ripped away from them in that
Right.
moment.
Yeah, and I think that's something many of us listeners can relate to. The
Hmm.
moment that you tell your kids, or my kids were there when he died, or whatever it
Hmm.
is, you can't explain how painful that is to
No.
watch your kids. And it's the same thing with me. Like, I didn't cry. Like, we were with Luke as he was dying. I did not cry one bit. And I think it was like this mama instinct, or like this
Hmm.
supernatural thing from God. I don't know what it was exactly, but the same thing. And it was later, like after my kids left the room, and it was my mom and me and Luke's body. And then that's when I lost it.
Yeah.
And that's when I was able to process it. And like,
Hmm.
it's just horrible watching your kids cry. And
Yeah, and you can't fix it.
right.
Like if usually we try to help them,
Yeah.
they're hurt or
Mm-hmm.
they're upset about something. That's the natural thing is you want to help them and you can't take away their pain. You can't make it make sense for them. And that, yeah, that was just devastating for me.
So the time between, was it like just a few weeks from the time that, like, how long was it from like the first thing that you like that went
Sure.
wrong? Like, I'm just trying to see
Hmm.
like
Timeline.
how much time, yeah, was that
Yeah,
in
so
between?
um it was the end of October when he first went to like the emergency room and things. So
Okay.
we did trick or treat and then we moved into the house. It was like the week of Thanksgiving is when we moved
Oh, so
into the
this
new
is all
house.
really fast.
Yeah, really fast. And then so a week of living in the home, he had a surgery and he was in the hospital for a total of 20 days.
Hmm.
And the kids were living with my parents. I lived at the hospital. I actually
Right.
slept
Wow.
on the couch in the waiting room for the first 5 nights. They didn't
Oh,
allow you to stay in the ICU, which was heartbreaking because I
yeah.
never wanted to leave them.
Right.
And it was such a hard pull as a mother
Mm-hmm.
to like the other half of me was at home and I couldn't see them and I had never been away from my kids for that long. And then like, the other half, my husband was in the hospital and I didn't want to leave him. And I did see the kids a couple times when he was in the hospital. But they told me like if you get sick, even if you get a sniffle, you
Yeah.
can't see him
Mm.
because he'll be removed from the list if he gets sick. And so that fear
Yeah.
consumed me
Uh-huh.
because I didn't want to do anything to get him taken off that
Mm-hmm.
list. Um, and it was winter. So,
Mm.
germs are everywhere. So it was very
Yes.
scary. But eventually they actually there's a nonprofit that has like little apartments across
Oh,
from the
that's
hospital.
great.
And it's for people who are on the waiting list for organs. And so I was able to go to that apartment
Oh,
at
that's
night
good.
after, yeah. So I would actually sleep in a bed and,
Yeah.
but it's just so surreal to think back to that time, like this little weird, um, what's the word? Like pattern, not pattern. What's the word?
Um,
Routine.
a
Sorry,
routine.
this
Yeah,
little
that makes sense.
this little routine that I had
Yeah.
where I would go to the apartment, order DoorDash, and
Right.
like it was. I mean, it was a free apartment, but I was like terrified. I was like shoving furniture in front of the door to
Mm.
sleep because the lock didn't feel very safe,
Yeah.
and just it was fine. It was just an old apartment, but it's such a weird time to look back at what I
Yes.
went through to, living out of a backpack and rushing to get to him. I mean, there were so many times they would call me in the middle of the night. Like I can still remember that feeling up. My body would just start shaking uncontrollably when
Mm.
they would call. And
Yeah,
because
scary.
I'm expecting what I'm wanting is them calling me, hey, we have a heart.
Right.
That's what I thought it was every time the phone rang. And instead, it would be complications with
Oh,
Matthew that I would need to go back to the hospital for.
right.
So,
Wow, it's so hard. So tell us what those first like few days, weeks, like what was life like for you right after you lost him?
Yeah, so I had a ton of support,
Good.
which I'm very lucky and blessed that I
Mm-hmm.
had so much support. I stayed with my parents for the first couple of days. They
Mm-hmm.
have bunk beds and they're upstairs for all the grandkids to sleep in. So I
Yeah.
just slept in the bunk beds upstairs with the kids and being surrounded by family while making
Yes.
those really hard
Mm-hmm.
decisions that I never thought, I never thought I would be going to pick out plots for me and my husband at
No.
33 years old. I
Oh
never
my
thought I would be
goodness.
doing that. But having their support while doing that was, I can't thank them enough. And, Matt was a fireman. So the brotherhood of firemen
Yeah.
is, you hear about it, but you don't really know what it's like until you experience it. So experiencing that and just having them there. Matt passed away 5 days before Christmas.
Oh my
So
goodness.
we went back home. So the kids, Santa had to come,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Santa was coming. So we went home, and later that day after we had celebrated, the firemen just dropped, basket full of
Mm,
gifts on our front porch.
so nice.
My mailbox was overflowing with gift cards from neighbors. We were new in this community.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new build. And someone found out what was going on, and they gave us 35 gift cards to fast
Wow.
food and
Awesome.
restaurants. It fed us for 2 months. And
Right.
thank goodness, because I'll be honest, for the first couple weeks, I went from the bed to the couch
Yeah.
and back to the bed.
Right.
And I love my kids so much, but he's 17 now. My oldest, he really helped because he would go get the
Mm,
food. And um but yeah, if I didn't have all of that support, oh my gosh.
right. It's
Yeah.
I feel bad when I hear widow stories who don't have family or
Right.
friends in the area.
Mhm.
And it's I go back and forth, like I don't know which one's harder. They're both hard. Like I feel bad for the widows that don't have kids at home and are like
Right.
lonely and alone, but yet it's hard to carry your kids' grief and your grief. That part's hard
It is.
too, you know, because
It is.
you're dealing with like your grief and then the death of like your kid's dad. It's just like
You're all grieving the same person. And
yes.
how do you navigate that?
Yeah.
Um yeah, that's actually my answer to what's the hardest thing about being a widow. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
ask
So
me and I can.
what's the most challenging thing about being widowed?
The most challenging thing for me is that we're all grieving the same person and watching my children grieve and not being able to fix it for them.
Yes.
Um, they're going through so much pain, and all I can do is be there as a resource, but I can't fix it. And that's hard as a mom. And we're all grieving the same person. So, I'm grieving not having my partner, but they're grieving not having their dad. And so I think ahead to, well, he's not going to be at their graduation.
Ugh, and that
And
is hard. Mm.
it's so hard. And, thinking about, well, he's not gonna be at the wedding. Like I'm grieving the life that Matthew
Yes.
didn't get to have as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's when I don't think anyone thinks about like, what is it going to be like when I grieve someday? No one ever thinks that, but
Mm-hmm.
all of these surprised me so much. All of these things that, like the secondary grief.
Yes, that's definitely secondary grief. And
Hmm.
I remember before Luke died, all of a sudden he was crying one day and he's like, I'm never going to meet our grandkids. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it just had never hit me. And then I have been through those moments. I've had two of mine graduate high school,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's really difficult. And the first
Hmm.
one was only like a year and a half after he died, and that one hit me the hardest. And it's hard. Like there's always somebody missing, and my daughter's gonna get married someday. It's all of it. You
Hmm.
can relate what I'm saying.
Yes.
There's always gonna be like this, a little bit like bittersweet. These sweet moments, but there's that we're missing your dad. And so I
Yeah.
think as a parent, it doesn't matter how old your kids are. As a parent, like those are the moments, or let's say
Yeah.
you just have adult children. It's when like they have children and all of that.
Yeah. And I remember thinking like, this changed my kids forever.
Yep.
Like this has just completely changed who they are as people.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate that for them. But I think that it will give them a little bit of a strength too.
Yes, that's
That,
true.
you know, and I think it's important for me, and what I try to do
Yeah.
is model that strength for them as their mother.
Yeah.
I just think that's really important. So I try to do that with honoring their dad whenever I can. I'm a big talker. I like to talk about feelings, and they don't
That's
necessarily
good.
love that
Right?
I
I
make them talk
know.
about their feelings.
That's so good. So there's
Yeah.
something that I say on the podcast constantly. It's what we feel God can heal. And it's like we
Mhm.
have to feel these things in order to heal. And so that's why I
Mhm.
never like stifle people's emotions. I'm like, this is good. Keep talking. It's healing. It's
Right.
healing. And so doing that with our kids is really important, and
Mhm.
creating an environment where they feel safe talking about their dad. I've heard from some people where they're like, my kids don't say his name. We don't talk about him. I'm like, no, you got to keep it. Like, I remember in
Yeah.
the beginning, we'd always be like, oh, what do you think daddy would think of this? What do you think of this? And it's like
Do that
constantly pulling him
too.
into the conversation. And I think that's so important. It sounds like you're doing that with your kids so that they
Mhm.
feel like it's a safe place to always talk about him, and to
Yes.
keep his memory alive, and, share memories, look at pictures. Like, that doesn't mean you're stuck in the past. That means you've got these gifts that you can share with the people that loved him too.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that's so important. So I'm so glad that you do that with your kids. So tell us
Mhm.
about, kind of going down a little bit further, like a few months out. Like, did you take time off of work? What was
Mhm.
your life like at that
Sure.
point?
So the irony of my story of me working in organ donation and him passing in that
Right.
way, I couldn't have worked for a better organization to
Mm.
understand what I was
Yeah.
going through. And I felt like I had an army behind me the
Mm.
whole time while he was in the hospital, after. And I was able, with work's help with FMLA, I was able to take 3 months total
Oh,
off of
good.
work. So I was able to take some time to heal, and they were very gentle with me when I went back. And one of the things that we do at Lifeline of Ohio every year is the candlelight ceremony.
Mm.
And I told them, like, I want to speak at that ceremony. I want to share Matt's
Wow.
story, and I want to I want to tell people what happened, because it's important for them to understand our pain. It's important for them to hear his name, because his name
Yes.
deserves to be said every day. And it was really healing for me. And I was able to share his story because I don't want another family to go through what my family went through. And, one person, they ultimately can save 8 lives with organ donation. And
Wow.
that's 8 families that you're helping. And so, like, in my mind, all I could think was, no other family should go through this pain that me and my boys and, his family, Matt's family, was going through. So if I can share that story, and I can reach even one person to, make that decision someday, then I'm helping all of those families. And um, so I really started this. It's almost like I had a new fire burning
Yeah.
within me. Like, I was
A
always an
purpose.
advocate for organ donation, but it was like,
It's personal now.
this, yes, like, this has to be told. Like, we can't, there's no messing around anymore. It's a hard conversation, but we need to talk about it, right? And so yeah, I just started wanting to share, and being in my role, it came very naturally. And like I said, they were so supportive, so they kept giving me those opportunities. Um, I also made a challenge coin for Matt, which, if there's anyone who is familiar with, like, military or firemen or police officers, they give out these little challenge coins, and it's a way to honor people in the service for whatever reason. But I made them in Matthew's honor, and I was able to pass them out to, like, the firemen who assisted at his funeral or were at his firehouse, and the people at my work. So I just kept trying to find ways to honor Matthew. Like, he was such an important part of my life. I couldn't just stop. Like, I had to keep giving him love every
Yes.
day. So like you were saying, what would daddy want? Or,
Yeah.
we do that.
Yeah.
And that was part of it. It's like, well, I'm going to make this coin. And we made t-shirts, and,
Oh, awesome.
so it said, um, I can't remember exactly what it says, so never mind. But yeah, so we made t-shirts, and, um, I'll even pick, like, what I think he would order off of a menu,
Right. Mm-hmm.
because it just makes me feel closer to him.
Right.
And we just look for purpose in everything that we do. And for those who believe in signs, we look for signs
Yep.
from him. And his badge number was 66 as a
Okay.
paramedic. So I have it tattooed on my arm, and
Awesome.
I believe that that's how he gives me signs.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually a really cool story. We just had our second candlelight ceremony since he's
Mm.
passed. So, I spoke at the one last
Yeah.
year, but this year I didn't. And there was a little boy speaking who was a liver recipient,
Mm.
and he wanted to be a fireman when he grew up.
Oh.
And on the way to this ceremony, I asked Matt for a sign. I said, please give me a sign that
Mm-hmm.
you're with me. I do that sometimes. And I said, it has to be a sign that I just know it's you. So this little boy speaking, I say little boy, he was 17, but
Right.
he got a liver transplant, and he's sharing, I want to be a fireman. I want to be a fireman at Station 6, Truck 6.
Oh my
And it just
gosh.
stopped me in my
Oh,
tracks.
I
And
love it.
I look at my manager and I'm like, did you just hear that? And it's so wonderful that I'm able to feel so close to him every day and just try to keep that memory alive for my kids.
Yes, I think you're doing a great job with them,
Thank you.
and we did that a lot too. So I worded a little bit differently, but it's the same concept. So like I believe that God gives us signs from our,
Sure.
I don't know how it works exactly, but we
Right.
would always like it was the weirdest thing. Like you take a picture, it looks normal, but there'd always be a streak of light, like
Yeah.
right on the kids, or like, and it happened all three of my kids when they got their driver's license, all three of
Oh
them.
my
And
gosh.
he had died before any of them got them. And and they're, 2 years apart, 2 years apart, 2 years apart. There's a streak of light right on them in the picture. And I'm like, God's showing us that daddy can see this.
I love it. Yes.
And I think that
Absolutely.
it's a gift from God to be able to be like, yep, they're good. So this is what I say. It's not like biblically based, but this is what I believe. I mean, it is. There's parts of it. So in heaven, you can't have sadness and sorrow and all of that. So I believe that it's like people in heaven have these blinders on where they can look down, but all they can see is the good. They can't be sad and all of that. So all these like moments, they're there. Like I believe he could see that. And he was like, I'm proud of you. Like, look what you're doing. And
I believe
so,
that wholeheartedly.
right? And so I think that's what happens because I believe God's a good God. Why wouldn't he want people, to be able to experience this? They're not experiencing all the heartache in the world. They're just seeing the good. And so we've had so many things like that. Here's one I don't even think I've shared on the podcast. So Luke loved like thunder and lightning and all of this stuff. And he died at, now I don't even remember the exact time. It was like 6:15 a.m. And at that exact time, 1 week after he died, we all woke up to thunder and lightning. We're like, that is weird. Like, totally, daddy, God, like, so I totally believe that, that it's a gift. And I think we're looking for, I don't see it as much anymore, but I'm not looking as much, I think in the beginning, when you're looking a lot, you can see it a lot more. I think the most recent was when my son Peyton got his driver's license like 6 months ago. When I saw that in the picture, I'm like, what's the chance that all three of them? I'm like, I think that your dad can see this, and he's sharing in this moment with us, and it's so beautiful. So tell us a little bit more about so a few months later, you go back to work. Like, what helps you? Are there any specific songs, versus people? I mean, I know your parents, but what things helped you to get to where you are today? And I know we're still always healing, but where you're healed enough to want to speak about this and make a difference, what kind of things helped you?
So my work giving me the opportunity to keep sharing about him has been huge. So my CEO actually said, I'd like you to go to this national conference with me in Texas in a few months, and I want you to share Matt's story if you're comfortable. And I'm like, of course, because any day that I get to say his name and share about him is a happy day for me. And so I got to go. It was my first time ever traveling by myself, so it was a big win.
Moment,
And I went to San Antonio, Texas, and I shared Matt's story in front of 450 peers.
Wow.
So other organ procurement professionals, right, from across the nation. And I was able to share his story. And again, that fire that I feel burning inside of me, it was like, what else can you do with this, right? Like, how else can you share a story? And, I sit down after I share the story, and there's other speakers that are there for the conference. And this speaker shared a quote that really stuck with me. And it's a quote by Mark Twain. And it says, "The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why." And I immediately wrote it down.
Yeah.
And I was like, I never would have thought
Right.
that this would be my why.
Yeah.
But this is my why. Like the fact that my ex-husband got a heart transplant, my current husband, he needed a heart transplant, and I work in organ donation. That's my why.
Yep.
I have to tell his story.
Yep.
I have to try to help save as many lives as possible, save their families too. And it's really just stuck with me that it was almost like a turning point in my grief too, where it was like, yes, this hurts, but I got to keep going. Like, I'm still here, and what can I do with this pain? What can I do with it?
That's so beautiful. And I think those are the widows that I see really thriving, or the ones who find purpose in their pain and are like, okay, I would never choose this, but because I'm here, I'm going to do this. And think about how many lives, and in a minute, I want to get into like more about organ donation, like how many lives you are now going to save with your story.
Right.
That wouldn't have been before. I mean, it's, and that's how I look at, like, I never thought I was going to be like doing widow podcasts and speaking like all this stuff, but now I can see how many lives that's changed. And then what happens is they go out and change other people's lives. It's like a domino effect. And so like we would never, ever in a million years choose this, but we can see what God is doing and helping, giving us, number one, giving us purpose. And then also helping us to help other people. I'm curious, how did you even start working in organ donation?
Yeah. So when I worked at the hospital before I started I work at Lifeline of Ohio is what it's called. So when I worked at the hospital, I watched a lot of people, unfortunately, become donors. They left this legacy behind where they're saving lives. And I was just really interested in the work. So we worked closely with a lot of people from Lifeline of Ohio. They were always on our unit. And I asked, I said, how do I start working with you? And I was given the opportunity to work in their call center. So that's where I started. And so I would start by talking to families about donation if they wanted their loved one to be a donor. And that was a really hard job.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot of, I mean, you're calling these families within hours of their loved one passing and asking them either to honor their loved one's decision, or if they themselves would want to make the decision for their loved one to be a donor. And, that was if the person themselves had not registered to be a donor. So, but having those hard conversations and, talking to them about donation, that's just kind of what got my passion for the mission of saving as many lives as possible. And then I made my way over to public relations because I was just interested in being in the classrooms. We go into high schools and we teach about donation because
that's so great.
We catch them in health class before they go to the BMV to get their license.
Oh, that's perfect. I love that you are educating kids like right before they get their license, because I just did that with my kids and I explained it to them. I had all of them do it, and but they didn't really know much about it. So it would be great if kids already knew going into it and had already discussed it with their parents and all of that stuff. So I think that's great. So now let's kind of shift to, I want to know more about organ donation and like just maybe some of the stuff you share when you're educating anybody about what it does. So I don't know what that entails, but I'm sure we can all benefit from hearing this.
Thank you for asking. It's so important to be educated on it because it's such a personal decision and there's no right answer for it. So it's whatever you feel, right? Like what you want to do in your heart. But upon your death, you're able to save lives through organ donation. So a lot of kids, when we talk about it, they're scared we mean right now, but we mean when they pass away.
Yes.
So you're able to save 8 lives, and that's with the heart, lungs, because you have 2, liver, kidneys, because you have 2, small intestine, and the pancreas. You're able to save 8 lives total. You can also heal 75 or more people with tissue donation.
Wow.
And you can give sight to 2 people.
Wow.
So you're saving lives. And even with tissue donation, you're giving somebody the ability to read a book to their kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's amazing, the things that you're able to do by just saying yes to being a donor, something that, when you do die, you can't take with you anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of times there's some myths and misconceptions that
Mm-hmm.
people are worried about. You can definitely still have an open casket funeral. It's not going to change your appearance in any way for that. There's no cost to being a donor, so sometimes people are nervous with that. Doctors will always save you. People get nervous that, like, if I register as an organ donor, they're not going to
I've
save me
heard
at the
that
hospital.
actually.
And that's not true.
Right.
And there's a whole backstory on how I could prove to you it's not
Yeah.
true. But, doctors, they go into that job because they want to save you.
Yeah.
And we have our own team of medical professionals that are at our organization. They're not in the hospital waiting. So when someone passes, then we go to the hospital and we talk to their families about the possibility of being an organ donor. So the doctors are always going to do whatever they can to save you.
Right.
And then as far as like the matching process goes, sometimes people think that like the rich or famous are going to get organs before someone else, and that's just not how it works. Yeah. So, they look at things, and I talked about this with my story. They look at like body size, how tall the person is. They look at where do they live, because, organs only have a certain amount of time to be transplanted before they're no longer viable. So that's another thing that they look at, is like surrounding states around the donor. And they look at blood type. So it has nothing to do with how rich or famous you are. And I feel like with my story, I can like make people relate to that even more, because if there was anything I could have done to make my husband receive a heart, I would have.
You even worked there and you couldn't make it happen faster.
No, that's not how it works. So, there's just a little bit of fear, and even people will sometimes say, well, oh, you don't want my organs, I'm too sick. Don't make that decision yourself. Let the medical professionals decide, in your heart, if you want to help, just say yes. And then our medical professionals will look at your medical history. We'll talk to your family, and we'll determine if and what you're able to help someone with.
Right. Well, like with Luke, he had cancer, so he could not be. But I believe it said on his license he was, but obviously he couldn't. I remember that being like, oh, we can't because of that. So there'll be some circumstances. But like you said, just put it on, be an organ donor, and then let the medical professionals decide.
And we're not going to recover if it's going to hurt someone. Like, we wouldn't recover something unsafe to go to someone else. So and I always tell people, like, the fact that you're even thinking of that, like, oh, I don't want to hurt someone, that's so kind that you're thinking that way. And we wouldn't recover if it wasn't able to be transplanted.
So it's such a rewarding job that you do. To be able to, I mean, it's not a coincidence. Like, I believe God orchestrates all these things, that you work there. Both husbands have had that, just like there's so much. And how is your son's father doing now? The one with.
Yeah, he's doing good. So now it's been 4 years in April since his transplant, and he's doing really well. It's hard for my middle son because, one dad was saved and
that's so hard to
the other
understand.
dad wasn't. Yeah. And I wanted him, the public relations mom and me wanted him to come with me and do an interview at work. And he was like, I can't go talk about it. He's like, it's too hard for me because of what I just said, that one dad was saved and one wasn't. But yeah, I've got good boys who they come and help me at work, but it's definitely challenging with how close to home it is.
Personal that is, and I can imagine what a hard question. My kids go through that differently, but like, why does one person get saved from cancer? They recover and one doesn't. Why is one person die here and they, we don't know. That's a good question for God. We don't know. It's like so hard. I tell my kids, it's like we see, like our lives are a puzzle. We just see like tiny little pieces. God sees the whole thing. We don't get it. We don't understand. But what we do know is you and I are helping people with our stories. At least we can do something good. It was like, if I had to go through this, I am going to help somebody because it's horrible.
Yeah.
And so you're doing so much good. I love this. Like, what do you see next for you? Like, do you have more you want to do with this message you're trying to get out?
I think so. I really do. Like any opportunity I can get to share Matt's story, like I've said, I want to.
Yes.
So if that means going to other organ procurement organizations and sharing his story with their staff, just to let them know that like they are the bridge between like tragedy and hope. Like they are the people that are helping these lives be saved. And if I can just give them a little boost to know that like the work that they're doing is important. Like I would love to do that. I would love to maybe write a book someday. I don't know. I
Yes.
have big dreams.
That's awesome. Keep those big
I
dreams.
thank you. Maybe a foundation in my husband's
Oh, I
name.
love that.
I'd love to like send firefighters to school like when they graduate.
Oh,
Like like maybe have a connection to donation. So their parents received an organ or
yeah.
they received an organ or like whatever and like so they have a connection to donation and then I can help them. I'm also a photographer on the side, so I lost a lot of that passion when Matt died and it isn't fully coming back. Like I did it as a part-time job, right, to make money.
Right.
And like I have no interest in making money with it anymore. And I'm like, well, maybe, but I want to help people. So I'm like, I have this desire to maybe gift sessions to
I
people
love
who are
it.
grieving, and
So
I'm
good.
able to just give them a service. I don't know about you, but like life just felt so different after, and it's like I'm here. Like we're here. We were left here and Matt's no longer here, but I need to make the most of what I have with life. And it's like I just feel called to help in so many different ways. And if I can just give to other people, I think that's going to fulfill me more than trying to make it into a part-time job as a photographer.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I love it. It's like you figure out why you're here on earth and then
Hmm.
like write that down and try to get your whole life to align with that, like your job, like
Yeah.
everything. It's like when you can,
Hmm.
I've been teaching my kids or trying to figure out their way in life, like when your passion and a job and like a career can align, that's when you're in the right
Hmm.
place. When you're like, I
Right.
love getting up and doing this.
Hmm.
And it sounds like that's like what you're trying to figure out. There's a lot of
Yeah.
figuring out after our spouse dies. There's the part of like, well, we
Mm.
have to make money now. Like
Right.
we're the only one
I
bringing
wish,
in the money.
yeah.
And
I wish I
then
could just do all of these things.
yes. And then just interesting, I just remember this. My mom had a neck surgery. Or was it back? No, it was a back surgery, fusion, a while ago. And she was gifted some skin or something. Because I was like, what's
Yeah.
this? There was a letter. And it was like
Uh-huh.
she could fill it out to thank the people. I don't know if she ever did. I need to ask her if she ever did that.
Please encourage her too.
Yes. So
Yes.
I just thought of that, like at the hospital for surgery. I was like, what? You got someone's skin? Somewhere they used it. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really cool that she could write a letter to tell them thank you for that.
Yeah.
Like, you see that in movies and stuff. And I did read a
Mhm.
book about that. Like, does that really happen? Do people send the letters? Do they connect? What's
It
that like?
it does. So your mom's a tissue recipient, which
Tissue.
is
That's what it
amazing.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, tissue recipient, and a lot of us are. Like I'm not, but a lot of people are, and they just don't realize it. So, um, families do have the opportunity to write to each other. Donation is completely anonymous, but if families want to write to each other, they can. So it all goes through the organ procurement agency. Like we send the letter to the family, we send it back to keep it private.
Yeah.
And then when they are willing, they can meet if they want
Oh,
to.
so
That
cool.
happens more with the organs
Yes.
more than tissue.
Right.
But we help facilitate those meetings all the time. And at work, I even get to like photograph
Oh,
those
so
meetings,
cool.
which is so amazing. And I'm going to be honest with you, when my ex-husband got his heart transplant, like one of the first things was like, you need to write the family.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And he is not as involved in organ donation as I would want him to be. And I have tried over the years to get him to go to events, to write the family, and he hasn't. And it kind of came to a boiling point for me personally here recently. I asked him again, like, can you come into work and just share your story? And he said, no, it's too hard. And that kind of struck a chord with me because I was like, too hard for you. Like, this is hard for me. And
Yeah.
I go out and share about it all the time. And I decided I can't control what he does,
That's right.
but I can control what I do.
That's right.
And so I wrote his donor's
Ooh,
family.
good for you.
And thank you. I explained to them real short my story, right? Like, married to the man your loved one saved. My husband didn't get a heart transplant, and I work for the organization, and I just want to thank you for what you did, because of your loved one's gift, my son still has his dad.
Yeah.
And I have not heard back from the family. That happens sometimes. So if they, they get the letter and they decide not to write back, you'll never get to find out
Right.
anything. But that's okay. Just knowing that I thanked them was really important to me, because I feel like they deserve that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I love all the work you're doing, and
Thank
that
you.
you want to continue sharing your story. And it's just been an amazing thing. So I'll close the questions with one more question. What advice would you give to a brand new widow?
That's a good one. In the early days, we have so many things we need to do. And I think it's important to just breathe and focus on, if one day at a time is too hard, focus on 1 hour at a time.
So
And if
good.
1 hour at a time is too hard, focus on one breath at a time. And it's going to be okay. And I can remember back to when I was a new widow, and if anyone said that to me, I would have wanted to strangle them. If they told me that it was going to be okay,
Right.
I would have been so mad at them. But just focus on one breath at a time. Lean into your community if you have it. If
Yeah.
people offer help, take it.
Yes,
Take the
please.
help. Take the help. And then I would say, for me, what helped the most was just honoring him in any way I could. So if you feel called to say your loved one's name,
Yes.
to honor them, to please do it, because it's very healing. And your story deserves to be told.
Yes. So good. Well, thank you, Kelli. Well, I would
Yes.
love to close by praying for you. So I'm going to go ahead and
Thank
do that.
you. Sure.
Dear God, I just thank you so much for Kelli. Thank you for her willingness to be here to share her story. Thank you that you are making purpose from her pain. God, I just pray over her family, over her sweet boys, God, that you would just continue to help grow them, give them peace, give them joy, give them purpose, and continue to just help them in that hole that they're feeling right now. And I just pray over Kelli for all the things she's going to do in the future, that you will open up doors for speaking and for writing, and that you'll do more than she could ever ask or imagine. And this becomes something really that she continues to be passionate about and helps. And I just pray for every listener today that you would cover them with the peace that passes all understanding. And I just pray that you bring in some joy in their lives today. And we just thank you for all you've done. Amen.
Amen.
Well,
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you like this podcast, give it a little being 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen. Please join our Widow Too Soon community. We have 2 pages. You can just search for Widow Too Soon community on Facebook. That's our large group. If you want to be in a small one, there's a link where you can request it. It's secret. Not anyone can find it unless they actually listen to the podcast. And again, please sign up to get the updates on my book. And also, I am sending out emails to people on their wedding anniversary, birthday, and death anniversary, because I know those were the hardest things for me, because so many of my friends forgot. And so you can sign up to get emails from me on that day. I've already had so many people respond to me and tell me, thank you, that meant so much. And so I started this program. So you just have to fill it in, and then you'll get emails from me. Anyways, thank you, Kelli, again for being here. I am so excited for people to listen to this. I think it's really going to help so many, and we appreciate you. So we will see you guys next time. Bye.